So, Umberto, you mentioned that you've been working with AI for 10 years, but most people think that the whole thing was invented 3 years ago. How come?
Yeah, so I mean, AI has been around for quite a while, right? Decades, in fact. The difference is now that after ChatGPT, it's popularized. But in terms of even the more modern applications of AI, we've been now doing that for more than 10 years. Things such as computer vision, ML, natural language processing. Right, there was a big boom a while ago when a lot of people were doing things like sentiment analysis for social media. Right, we spend a lot of time doing that.
Uh-huh.
Hey, how's your audience relating to this or relating to that? Right. One of the things that we did as well, very frequently, was to use computer vision for things like facial recognition, right? And to be able to identify different shots, the content within the image, right? Labeling, classification, those are all things we use that a lot. And, in a lot of, even to this day, right, you don't want to use generative AI for everything, right? In fact, there are many things that you don't want to use generative AI for, right? So, for instance, let's say that you are, say, a financial company for risk analysis. Generative AI may play a role into fraud analysis, but it's not going to be the main thing. If you're calculating or optimizing for efficiency, right, or predictability, right? If we're in the World Cup now, right? So you're not going to design a model for the World Cup, for to predict the teams that are going to win based on generative. You're not going to get the best result out of an
Hmm.
LLM model, right?
You will
Um,
get a result,
you
not
get a
necessarily the
result,
best.
but something like that, you want to have the data trained. They're very robust and well verified algorithms that allow you to actually extract the most value, right? Or let's say if you're doing things such as inventory management or price prediction or efficiency, you're not going to use generative AI for those things, right? Sometimes it'll be an overkill, sometimes it'll be inefficient. At the end of the day, you want to apply it where it makes sense.
Yeah. So you've spoken to a lot of companies over the years, and over the last 2 years, you accelerated that because much more companies, many more companies, have been interested in AI and creating expectations around that. Um, but most of them think that they're doing AI just by using ChatGPT. Um, what do you tell them when you ask, "Hey, are you using AI?" And they're like, "Yeah, I'm asking questions to ChatGPT." What are they missing?
Listen, I think there's absolutely a role, right, that your frontier chat powered solutions work, right, and it's very valuable, right, in terms of reading and drafting emails, optimizing communication, automating basic processes, right. The reality of it is that it's there are more sophisticated and efficient ways to handle some of these problems, right, or to tackle some of these problems, and that's where some of the more advanced things come in, right? So we talked about this, and one of the things that I see most often, I'm going to switch that to data because I think it's critical, right? It's at least in our organizations, the organizations that we work with, how do you extract the most amount of value from AI? And the reason, at least the way we've done it, is I get the best employees. And how do I replicate their quality of work? And to me, that's the key. And how do you do that? And the way we've done that is that we develop the systems, agents, and processes and models around the best people.
Mm-hmm.
So, so like a way, like I said, so the way, the question is, how do you extract the most value from AI? And the way I extract the most amount of value is, how do I replicate my best processes and people? And the way we've accomplished this in the companies that we work with is, we get the best people and the best processes, and we develop and implement AI and agents and systems around those higher standards, and then you replicate those, or you distribute those and allow more people to have access to those. Now you have your highest performing individuals, whether it's administrative, finance, engineering, and you have their level of standard made available to all of you, to your community members and employees, right? And then the other thing, too, when you think about it, is as in the event that those people are no longer in the company, they move on to something else, you have now retained those standards. And that to me it's substantial. It's very valuable. It's substantial value in terms of, the token capital, right?
I was going to mention that because we have 2 clients who lived through that. They have like 2 or 3 people within the company that if they got hit by a lightning, the company's bust.
Yeah.
So how does AI play a role in that? How can you replicate what those people do, what those people know? How does that play out?
Yeah, you can always maybe call that, I don't know, like talent surrogacy, something like that.
Yeah.
And the key thing is, how do you get, again, your best people and processes, and how do you replicate those, right? So, like any company out there, we have incredible people that deliver incredible results. And the question is, we'd love to level and to make everyone as efficient of those people, because at the end of the day, it makes the organization better, right? Historically, people sort of set in isolation when it comes to their competency. And I think AI allows for almost the democratization of brain power, right? So you get some of those strands and some of the knowledge, and a lot of people are better because of the way they think and the process they use or the tools they apply. And then you can actually build that into a system, right? A replicable system. And then by doing that, you have the ability to now elevate the standard of delivery across your organization. And I think that's a great way to extract the most out of AI. And that's something that we do internally all the time.
We've always heard about the 10x engineer, people who are 10 times more productive than their peers. Now with AI, people are talking about 100x, not only engineers, but any function within the company. And I heard you tell me that you've never produced more than you're producing now. And you have more time for your family. You have 4 kids, you have church life, and you're sleeping better. How can you do that? How exactly did you assemble your routine so that you can accomplish that?
So the foundation for all is processes, right? And process that can be replicated, right? So to me, at least one thing is one thing that stresses me out if it's I have a lot of things to do and everyone has a lot of things to do and they can get it done in a day or they can get it done over a short period of time, right? You have to have a lot of emotional resilience to be able to push through projects with no results for long periods of time. So the one thing at least is that I have these goals that used to take me weeks and months, and now they've been compressed into days or hours, right? And the core of this is I've tried to do the best I can to replicate the way I think, the way I work, and the tools that I use in a way that not only I can use, but other people can use as well. And as it relates to me, right, I've been, I think, very successful on accelerating delivering output, right? So to me, I am obsessed about productivity, right? So I measure my productivity in terms of what I deliver in terms of man hours, how much time I was active. And the best thing for me today is that I you can work hard, but at the end of the day, you actually have a very solid and tangible progress on the project, right? Which has been, I'll argue that it's 100x now. And we actually are doing some internal research that we hope to publish that, to actually measure that. And I believe that we may be either close to or have maybe exceeded the 100x already in terms of traditional output compared to even, a year or so ago.
I remember you once told me that you started out as a software engineer, and over time you had to delegate that.
Yeah.
And now you're back because you can, right? Yeah. And you have a problem-solving mindset. And what is it exactly that you're doing right now? How many projects are you running? Tell me a little bit about that.
A lot, right? A lot. How many projects? So you're right. I mean, for the past 10 years, I've had very little time to actually code anything substantial, right? I played around with the technology. I did some basic implementations here and there, but I've been nowhere near the time that I've had. And technology products, they take time and dedication, right? You can't just. It's hard to work an hour a day or 2 hours a day and get anything substantial out there. So the one thing is that now that I have the tools and resources available, I'm actually dedicating more time than an hour, but the output is orders of magnitude greater than what I could produce. So to me, the way I've done is I've replicated the processes and the systems and to some degree the way I solve problems and think from an engineering standpoint, and create the guardrails to be able to a great extent be autonomous, right? So in other words, I delegate as much as I can to the point that the decision can be reversible, and I don't penalize the system for doing that. And if it needs to be retracted or reworked, then we can always do it. So it's finding that balance, right? I find like a lot of these things it's about balance. So in order to get 100x productivity, which I think we've achieved, right, across many areas, from engineering to research, right? The key thing has been how do we get the best of what you have and built into a system with some degree of freedom, right, and autonomies, and replicate that over and over, and that will likely get you to substantial results.
So a lot of people right now are using Claude Code, for example, and they think that they've become developers.
Sure.
So because they talk to an AI, and they think, hey, well, it's building something, but what is the distance between that and something that would be able to be implemented?
Lucas, apaga o